If someone had asked me a year ago what Christmas felt like, I would have said it was a tight knot in my chest that showed up right after Thanksgiving and didn't loosen until January. My name is Ethan Miller, I'm 39, and I live in Central Ohio, where winters are gray, coffee is strong, and family traditions are treated like sacred law, even when they hurt. Every Christmas Eve, without fail, my extended family gathered at my mother's place in Maple Ridge, a picture-perfect suburb full of identical houses, trimmed hedges, and neighbors who waved but never asked real questions. My mom, Carol, loved that house. Loved the way it looked from the outside. Loved what it said about her. And every year, as I drove there with my wife Lauren and our son Noah, that same familiar weight settled on me. For 6 years straight. Noah was 10 last Christmas. Quiet. Observant. The kind of kid who noticed things adults missed. He wasn't loud, wasn't flashy, didn't raise his hand first in class. His grades hovered in that uncomfortable middle zone, nothing alarming, nothing brag-worthy. And in my mother's world, that meant something was wrong. Carol had 2 grandsons. Noah, and Brandon, my sister Melissa's son. Brandon was 12, top of his class, debate club, math league, teachers adored him. He knew how to smile at the right time, say the right thing, sit up straight when adults were watching. My mom glowed around Brandon. She could turn a 5-minute dinner conversation into a full performance about his achievements. Test scores. Awards. Scholarships he might get one day. Futures she'd already written for him. When it came to Noah? Silence. Or worse, thin smiles and redirected conversations that said everything without saying anything at all. I'd heard it so many times it echoed in my head. Have you considered extra tutoring? Some kids just aren't academic. Hands-on types usually struggle later in life. Once, right at the table, she'd laughed softly and said, "Well, not everyone can be smart. Someone has to work with their hands." Everyone heard it. No one stopped her. Including me. That's the part that still sits heavy in my stomach. Because kids notice silence. They absorb it. Noah used to talk non-stop. Ask questions. Tell me stories about ants he watched on the sidewalk, or how he could tell when someone at school was pretending to be okay. Over the years, he changed. He smiled less. Spoke less. Shrank, just a little, every Christmas. By last year, I realized something that scared me more than bad grades ever could. He believed her. On the drive to my mom's house that Christmas Eve, I pulled the car over on a quiet stretch of road. Snow sat heavy on the fields, the sky dull and low. Lauren didn't ask why I stopped. She just looked at me and nodded once. She knew. I turned around in my seat. Noah was staring out the window, shoulders slightly hunched, headphones on but no music playing. I called his name. He turned, eyes calm, guarded. I took a breath. "Listen to me," I said. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't owe anyone intelligence, talent, or success. You are enough as you are." He didn't respond, but his shoulders dropped, just a little. Then I added, carefully. "But if someone disrespects you, you're allowed to stand up for yourself. In your own way. Just know your limits." Noah held my gaze longer than usual. Then he nodded. Once. Something shifted behind his eyes. At the time, I thought I was just being a supportive dad. I had no idea I was handing him permission. When we finally pulled into my mom's driveway, the house looked exactly the same as always, white siding, wreath on the door, lights perfectly arranged. For a brief, stupid moment, I hoped this year would be different. Inside, laughter echoed. The table looked perfect. The food smelled incredible. My grandmother Ruth, now 85, sat at the head of the table, quiet, watchful, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Dinner passed smoothly. Too smoothly. And that should have been my warning. Because when my mom stood up, clapped her hands, and smiled like she was about to make a speech, I felt that knot tighten again. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew Christmas wasn't over yet. My mother clapped her hands twice, sharp and deliberate, the way teachers do when they want silence without asking for it. "All right," Carol said brightly, already smiling. "Before dessert, I have something special." She disappeared into the hallway and came back carrying 2 boxes. One was large, heavy, wrapped in glossy silver paper with a thick red bow that looked professionally tied. The other was smaller, lighter, wrapped neatly, but plainly. She placed them side by side on the table, right in front of everyone. Then she looked at the boys. "Brandon. Noah. Stand up, please." Brandon was already halfway up before she finished the sentence. He straightened his sweater, confident, used to being watched. Noah pushed his chair back more slowly and stood beside his cousin, hands at his sides, eyes down. Carol picked up the bigger box first. She turned to Brandon, her smile widening in a way I'd seen my entire life, pride mixed with performance. "This," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is for my most accomplished grandson. Honor roll again. Math competition finalist. A boy with a very bright future." Brandon opened the box. An iPad. Brand new. The screen caught the light like it wanted applause. Melissa gasped. "Oh my God, Mom." She clapped, laughing, like her son had just won a national award. Then Carol turned. She picked up the smaller box and handed it to Noah. Her smile didn't disappear, but it changed. Softer. Thinner. Almost apologetic. "This one," she said casually, "took more thought. An iPad wouldn't really be useful for you, sweetheart. School just isn't your strength." My jaw tightened. "But," she continued, tilting her head, "you're good with your hands. Some kids are. Using your hands is faster than using your brain sometimes, right?" The words landed hard. Like a slap no one acknowledged. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "What did you just say?" I asked. Carol looked at me like I'd interrupted something trivial. "I told the truth," she said calmly. "There's nothing wrong with that." "You just implied my son isn't smart," I snapped. "In front of everyone. On Christmas." Melissa leaned forward, voice syrupy. "Ethan, don't be dramatic. Mom's just being realistic. Not everyone is academic. Realistic." Carol waved a hand. "I'm helping him understand his place. Better now than later." His place. The room went quiet. Ruth didn't move. Brandon stared at the floor. Melissa's husband suddenly found the mashed potatoes fascinating. Lauren grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing hard. "Wait," she whispered. "Look at him." Noah hadn't opened the box yet. Finally, he lifted the lid. Inside was a cheap tool set. A screwdriver. Pliers. A small wrench. The kind you buy at a hardware store near the register. Something in my chest cracked. Noah didn't react. He just stood there, face neutral, holding the box. Carol smiled smugly. "See? Perfect fit." Noah slowly picked up the screwdriver, turning it in his fingers, examining it like he was thinking. Then, quietly, he stepped forward. As he passed the table, his arm brushed a wine glass. It tipped. Red wine spilled across Carol's dress. Her red velvet dress. The one she'd bragged about for months. Imported. Boutique. $2,000. The stain spread fast. Carol screamed. "What did you do?" Noah looked up at her, voice calm. "I'm sorry, Grandma. You said I'm clumsy. I use my hands too much." Her hand shook as she raised it, fury written all over her face. "You little." I stepped in front of my son. You don't get to insult him and then call him names, I said. But Noah wasn't done. He walked past us, to the leather couch Carol loved more than most people. Italian leather. Pristine. Untouchable. Before anyone could react, he drove the screwdriver straight into the seat. The sound of tearing leather sliced through the room. Noah pulled it out, stared at the damage, then turned back. I'm practicing, he said softly. You gave me tools. No one moved. Carol stood frozen, eyes wide, chest heaving. I knew then. This wasn't over. Not even close. For a moment, no one breathed. The room smelled like spilled wine and torn leather, like something expensive breaking beyond repair. Then my mother exploded. Get out, Carol screamed, her voice cracking sharp and high. Get out of my house. All of you. Right now. I didn't move. I looked straight at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. You insulted my son, I said evenly. You handed him a gift meant to shame him. And when he acted exactly the way you described him, you lost control. What did you expect? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Melissa stood rigid, face pale. Her husband stayed silent, like he always did when things got uncomfortable. Brandon clutched the iPad to his chest like it was a shield, eyes wet, shoulders shaking. I thought that was the peak. I thought we'd leave and that would be it. But then, a chair scraped softly against the floor. Ruth stood up. Slowly. Carefully. Every movement deliberate. At 85, my grandmother didn't waste motion. She walked toward my mother, one step at a time, the way she used to when I was a kid and someone had crossed a line. The room froze. Ruth reached Carol and grabbed the collar of her dress, not hard, but firm enough to force eye contact. What are you doing? Ruth asked quietly. You're throwing your grandson out on Christmas. Carol's lips trembled. Ruth didn't let go. Do you remember, she continued, when you were the one being compared? My breath caught. I remember, Ruth said. They said you weren't good enough. Said a single mother couldn't raise a proper child. Said you were second-rate. Carol's shoulders began to shake. How many nights did you cry? Ruth asked. How many times did I hold you and promise you'd be more than their words? Tears spilled down my mother's face. I thought, Ruth said softly now, you'd never become them. She released Carol and stepped back. You didn't break the cycle, she said. You passed it on. My mother collapsed into sobs. I didn't see a powerful woman anymore. I saw a wounded child who never healed. Then a small voice spoke. Grandma? Everyone turned. Brandon stepped forward. He placed the iPad gently on the table and pushed it toward his mother. Will you still love me? He asked, voice shaking, if I stop being the best? Silence crushed the room. I'm scared, he continued. Not of failing tests. Of failing you. Melissa's face went white. If I'm not first, Brandon whispered, will you look at me like you looked at Noah? No one had an answer. That night didn't end with yelling. It ended with something far worse. Truth. And once it was out, there was no putting it back. We didn't argue after that. No slammed doors. No final speeches. Just the sound of coats being pulled from hooks, shoes sliding on hardwood, the quiet click of the front door closing behind us. The drive home felt heavier than the drive there. Snow fell softly, like the world didn't realize something had shattered. That night, we sat in our small living room. Lauren made hot chocolate the way she always did, extra cocoa, marshmallows pushed gently under the surface. Noah sat on the rug, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the steam rising from his mug. I broke the silence. I explained what comparison does to a kid. How it eats away at confidence without making a sound. How words don't disappear just because the person who said them forgot. Then I looked at my son. You defended yourself tonight, I said carefully. I understand why. But destroying things crosses a line. Next time, you can speak up. You can walk away. You don't have to become the wrong one to prove a point. Noah nodded. I know, he said. Then paused. But tonight. I'm not sorry. Lauren squeezed my hand, just once. Permission, without words. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Melissa had posted a long rant online, accusations, half-truths, venom disguised as concern. She said I was raising my son to be disrespectful. That I'd manipulated him. That jealousy was the real issue. The comments split the family in two. Lauren read everything quietly. Then she did something I didn't expect. She posted a video. She'd recorded the dinner. Not to expose anyone, but because she'd learned, long ago, that silence protects the wrong people. Her caption was simple. This is the first and last time I speak publicly about this. The video speaks for itself. 2 days later, Melissa called. Her voice sounded empty. Brandon saw it, she said. He saw me laugh. He hasn't spoken to me since. Then she cried. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know how to face myself. A week later, Ruth called. I changed my will, she said calmly. The money will go into a trust. Split evenly. For both boys. Carol, she said, was left the old farmhouse. Nothing more. She needs to remember who she was, Ruth added quietly. Carol left town shortly after. Went back to the farm. Alone. Months passed. Noah changed. Not in grades, but in confidence. He asked questions. Learned things books didn't teach. Built, fixed, observed. When Ruth called again at the start of summer, she asked something unexpected. Let the boys come to the farm, she said. Adults can hold grudges forever. Kids shouldn't. I hesitated. Then agreed. When we arrived, Carol stood on the porch, thinner, quieter, stripped of polish. Noah walked past her without a word. But over the days, I watched him help her. Carry buckets. Fix fences. Catch her when she stumbled. No forgiveness in words. Only actions. And for the first time, Carol saw him. Really saw him. By the end of summer, the farm no longer felt like a punishment. It felt like a classroom no one had thought to build. Noah learned fast. Not math formulas or spelling rules, but timing, patience, leadership. He figured out how to move sheep without yelling, how to fix a loose fence with whatever was on hand, how to notice when someone was tired before they said it out loud. Brandon struggled. Badly. The kid who never failed at anything suddenly failed at everything. He spilled feed, startled animals, bruised his own thumb with a hammer. The first time he snapped in frustration, Noah didn't laugh. He showed him how. Slowly. Without judgment. Carol watched from a distance. No speeches. No commentary. Just observation. And one evening, as the sun sank low and the fields turned gold, I saw them sitting together on the porch. I'm sorry, Carol said quietly. I never gave you a chance. Noah didn't answer right away. I'm not mad because you called me stupid, he said finally. I'm mad because you decided who I was before I could show you. Carol nodded, eyes wet. The next morning, Noah told her to wake up early. I'll show you how to feed the sheep properly, he said. You've been doing it wrong. She smiled. The first real smile I'd seen in years. That winter, Christmas came again. This time, we gathered at the farm. No catered food. No polished performances. Just stew from the garden, bread Ruth taught Carol to bake, laughter that didn't need applause. The gifts were simple. Handmade certificates. Noah's Reed, best shepherd on the farm. Brandon's, most improved, despite the worst start. Mine, a father who learned when to speak. I felt my eyes sting. After dinner, Noah led everyone outside, bossing Brandon and my brother-in-law around like a seasoned foreman. They laughed. Real laughter. Watching them, I understood something I wish I'd learned sooner. Grades measure performance. Character reveals itself when no one is clapping. If you're listening to this story, remember 3 things. 1. Every child has strengths school may never see. 2. Pain doesn't disappear, it waits. 3. Forgiveness doesn't always start with words. Sometimes it starts with a chance. And sometimes, a different kind of Christmas.